Hi guys, another video on special types of angles. I'm going to focus on two main types that I really want to make sure you have a handle of. So let's kind of dive into what those two types are and kind of talk about them. The first involves the 90-degree angle. So in my notes, I'm going to draw a perfect 90, which we know we can use the little box to indicate. Here's my 90-degree angle. But this is the type of angles that I want to kind of get into today. What if I decided to split this 90-degree angle up? Like, what if I decided to draw a line through it? Now, if I draw the line right down the middle of it, it'd be like splitting the 90 in half. So you'd be like taking 90 degrees and dividing it into two parts. Well, 90 divided by 2 is 45. So that means the little angle that gets formed here must be 45 degrees, and the little angle that forms here must be 45 degrees. And 45 and 45 make 90. We have a name for this. When you have two angles that come together to make a 90, we actually call that something. We call it complementary angles. So I'm going to write here, complementary angles. Oop, barely gave myself space to write. Complementary angles. They go together. Complementary angles go together to make a 90-degree angle. So if you needed a definition of like, what is complementary angles? I would say it's two angles that make 90. Or that sum is 90 if you added it together. That if you add together, you get 90 degrees. You can say this a lot of different ways. But two angles that if you add them together, you get 90 degrees. It's just two angles that make 90. Now 45 and 45 is that perfect split. It's like taking 90 and dividing it in half. But it doesn't have to be that too. Like it could be other options. I'm going to show you some other examples of complementary. So down below here, let's put some more complementary examples. How about this? Here's my perfect 90. Looks like this. I'm going to take my perfect 90 here. And I'm going to split it like we did in the last problem. And this time, I'm going to split it more like this. Forming two angles. I have the first angle, which is here. I'm going to call that angle 1. And the second angle, which is here, angle 2. Now, I could tell you that angle 1 plus angle 2 when added together equals 90 degrees. And therefore, you would know right away it's complementary. If they go together and make 90, it's got to be complementary. Now, I don't know the measurement, so what if I told you that angle 1 had a big measurement? It is 80 degrees. Well, then what does angle 2 have to be? Yeah, angle 2 has to be 10 degrees, right? Because 80 plus 10 makes 90 degrees. It has to make a perfect 90 to be complementary. Now, there's a way we can kind of infuse some algebra into this. We can go from just studying the angles to putting some variables into these problems. Let's try one that involves some variables. So we're going to make up a new problem. And for this problem, what we're going to do is we are going to draw another 90-degree angle. I'll put a box to indicate that it's 90. Then what we're going to do is we are going to split off this 90 into two parts. I'm going to tell you that the bottom angle from here to here measures 35 degrees. And I'm going to tell you that the top angle measures x, an unknown degree. We easily can solve for x. By looking at this problem, we're like, you know what? This is a complementary situation. So if it's complementary, which I'm going to write that word down, then what I know is if I take the 35 degrees and I add it to the x, I'm supposed to get 90 degrees altogether. That's an easy equation for me to solve. Think about it. Line down the equal sign, I'm going to take the 35 degrees away from both sides, and I'm going to get my answer. X is going to equal 90 minus 35. So what would that be, 55 degrees? So our answer is x is equal to 55 degrees. That means over here, this must be a 55-degree angle. Now, if you're not completely sure, or maybe you want to show a little extra work and kind of prove that you're right, we can do a quick check over here. The check on this is going to be fast. These two angles are supposed to make 90. So to check it, I'm going to make sure 55 plus 35 actually adds up to 90. If it does, then I feel pretty good about it. So 5 and 5 make 10, carry the 1. 5 plus 3 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Oh yeah, 90 degrees, check. Everything's good. That's a complementary angle problem. Let me give you another example of a complementary angle problem that maybe we can make slightly more difficult. How about this? I have an angle that makes a perfect 90, and I'm going to split it apart. So this time I'm going to split it more like this. And I'm going to tell you that the bottom angle, which is right here, has a measurement of x plus 5. And I'm going to tell you that the top angle has a measurement of 15 degrees. Solve for x. No problem. I can totally solve for x. Here's what I know. If I take the x plus 5 angle and I add it to the 15 degrees, it's supposed to all come out to a grand total of 90. The whole thing together makes 90 degrees. So again, I totally can solve this. 5 plus 15 is 20. So I have x plus 20 equals 90. I'll use my algebra skills to solve for the x. I'll take the 20 away, something I already know how to do, and I'm going to have x is equal to 90 take away 20, which is 70. So I just did something. I just put the degree marker on there, and then I realized, why did I do that? X is equal to 70, but that's not the degrees. Think about it. This angle was x plus 5. So if I want to know the degrees, it was actually 70 plus 5. So we have an angle that measures 75 degrees in this corner. So it's a 75 degree angle. So you got to be careful how you kind of denote your answers. Up here it was totally fine to say x equals 55 degrees because x was the entire angle. It was the 55 degree angle. But down below, x equals 70 was not the full answer. Once I go over here, it's actually 70 plus 5, which is 75 degrees. So now comes the story of you got to read the directions. Some problems are going to say, hey, solve for x. Okay, there it is. I solved for x. I did it down below. I got x equals 70. Well, other problems are going to say, hey, solve for the angle. Oh, well, there's the angle, 75 degrees. So you got to really read it. Do they want you to solve for x, or do they want you to find the angle? Because if they want you to find the angle, this is what I'm circling as my answer. That's the angle. That's the final angle. But this is the variable. This is the x. And if they say solve for x, then this is what I'm circling. So I do need to read directions very carefully on these problems. Solving for x versus solving for the angle, kind of two different things. So kind of pay attention to that when you're reading your questions. Okay guys, so that's the basics there. That's complementary angles. Two angles that make 90 degrees are complementary.